we were talking to last week about. I mean, from when we were, yeah, actually it was today, but it was aired, like, when this program will air, be about a week or so from that initiative. I want to talk about that. And also, you're still pursuing the Attorney General
Absolutely.
idea, and we got to talk all about that, and I'm really looking forward to it. And welcome very much to Conversation. Pleasure to welcome to the program Carl Pearson. Carl Pearson's been a guest a number of times on my program and others too, and he's an attorney who has had a long career in serving, in a certain sense, the general public and the interest of the people, as it were, in a very singular kind of way, and he works as hard as anyone I know. He's constantly on the case, as it were, for the people. And Carl, welcome very much to Conversation.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here, and there's some really very important things that we can talk about.
Which we're going to want to get into, but could you share, as you've done before, just for a real thumbnail, background.
Sure.
You're an attorney, but could you share your background?
I'm an attorney. I went to Harvard Law School. I went years ago. I dropped out or failed high school, so I don't have my high school diploma yet, and I'm not sure whether I should go out and try to get it now. But about a year ago, I joined the class. They allowed me to come back into my class reunion from high school, and they didn't even know that I had quit. I mean,
you dropped out of high school?
I did. I never went back. I went into the Army.
Can you remember? Was that what it was about? You wanted to go in the service? Is that why you
did
dropped
not.
out?
I thought high school was a bore, and I always tried to go to the bathroom and take the plaque to allow me outside the room, or better yet, to be appointed as the one who ran the motion picture projector. I thought that would be good for the science people. I would volunteer to get out of the class because it's boring.
Yeah.
Have you ever sat in a class?
Oh, I know. You've got agreement with me. I just thought school got in the way of education. I really did.
Oh, it does.
And I see the things where they say, what's the difference between a high school? It's like or the school system is like a minimal security correctional facility, in a certain sense, and that kind of thing.
Can I detour?
Absolutely, detour
let me
away.
tell you what I did. Many years ago, I created a program that was so good that I offered it to New York City for free. I promised to take people off of welfare at my own expense because I owned a school, and I knew the program that people needed. So New York City's Department of Health Addiction Services called me up and said they liked the proposal. Can I send the contract over? So I met with a lawyer there, and he said that this program was the greatest thing that he's ever seen, and that he wanted to be the first student in the class. I said, but you're a lawyer. And he wanted to be my first student. So many years later, nothing ever happened. Many years later, I was hiring lawyers, and in came this person who said, didn't we meet about so many years ago? And I said, whatever happened to that? You were so gung-ho. I can't believe that New York City dropped it. I'm willing to take people off of welfare at my own expense. I know how to do it. And you never went forward with it. He said because New York City only had 5% of the money. They weren't allowed to spend it for that at that time. And New York State had 10%. The federal government had to contribute 85%. So the city,
the project you had proposed?
Any welfare-oriented project is 85 fed, 10 state, 5 city.
Still hold?
So the city, yes, but New York City has more of an opportunity of putting together a program that can take the 85 and the 10. They have that now, but they didn't have it then.
I see.
Here's the program, and it was so good. I called it a management assistant training program, and then the state made me rename it into something else, and I forget what that was. But it was going to be a multi-skills program where I would teach people how to drive. I would teach people how to use basic software. This is years ago before we had a lot of software. Teach them all of the things that could be useful to me as the owner of a small business. I want somebody that thinks like me. If the phone rings, and they have to recognize what are my interests. Yesterday something happened. The phone rang. A person picked up the phone and cut the person off who called. And I said, why did you do that? I said, I've spent so much of my life trying to generate calls from the main media. And now, because you see that I'm busy here, you think I don't want to be disturbed. But we have somebody from the main newspaper in the entire world wanting to interview me, and you're protecting me from that? You see, a person that thinks like me would say, what a great opportunity to have the top newspaper in the world interview you. Anything that you're doing probably can be set aside.
Yeah, right.
But see what I mean? So I wanted to train people to think like me, or any other an entrepreneurial type program.
Yeah.
Because that, you can't do better in life than to become the assistant to the owner of a small business.
Can't do better than
I don't think you can do better in starting off than to be the assistant to the owner of a small business.
If the owner of the small business knows what he's doing.
Well,
no?
Of course.
Yeah,
of course. Now, here's what opportunity I gave up, unfortunately. I graduated from Long Island University in Brooklyn, Flatbush Avenue, DeKalb Avenue in Brooklyn, and the professor there knew the individual who financed our university.
How did you get into university having dropped out of high school? How
it
does
was
that
the
work?
only school in the country that was willing to take me.
Good
So
thing
it was
that
with
one
great
school.
difficulty, and 1 week after I got there, I was the assistant to the individual who accepted me.
Using
Vincent
some
Vincent.
of your entrepreneurial skills and your opportunity
they
skills,
saw
perhaps?
they saw that I work hard and I grasp things. I'm inquisitive, and it's a lot of different skills. But you have to have that kind of attitude, I think. But this individual that accepted me, even though I did not then have, and I still don't have a high school diploma, nevertheless, he took me on, and I worked steadily, and a year and a half later, I became the president of this whole student body.
Wow.
Yeah,
right,
and I got accepted to every law school, scholarships all over the place.
Yeah, I was going to say, you dropped out of high school and you accepted. Harvard would be the top law school, I think, in the country. I would fair to say, in terms of making connections and everything.
I believe then. I don't believe in the connections at all. They've never panned out. No connections at all.
But I think a lot of people go to Harvard in order to get a good Rolodex built up so they can go down to Wall Street and make a lot of money.
A lot of people take a master's degree thinking that they can get a job teaching, and they can't because those jobs are filled already. So a lot of people go into things for the wrong reasons, and going into law or going to a particular law school because you are going to get connections, it never paid out for me, and I don't believe it will pay out for most people. I think it's false and misleading.
So the big thing, SAT things and all the trauma and so forth about trying to get into quote unquote a good school is misplaced in the part of the people that are going that way? They want to get to Harvard, Stanford, or the University of Chicago or the big schools.
I wrote a book called Self-Employment, and I'd be interested. I can give away a free copy by PDF to anyone who inquires. No cost.
Is that your site? Yeah, your site.
I will. It's on my site. It's on my site. They can download it. I think. If not, email to me. My website is carlperson.com. carlperson.com. I have 100 websites, so I have to figure out which website to give the people. But
you're one of the most busy people I've ever in all my life.
I just wrote a website 2 days ago.
Oh, really?
I filed a lawsuit against Gordon Ramsay, the chef in Chef Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah, it was reported all over the world, apparently.
200 newspapers picked it up in 24 hours.
Wow.
So within 5 hours after I filed the lawsuit, I have created a website, and I'm asking for people around the world who can be witnesses and give me information.
Okay, so, relevant to what that is about. Yeah.
So I can write a website in no time, and I do it quite frequently. But
and you
anyway, with this self-employment, with the book, this book, Self-Employment, advocates that there's a point of cost, student loan cost, tuition cost, and there's a point of jobs where the expectations from employment keep diminishing in America.
Right.
I think we've reached the point where a person should no longer think automatically of going to college.
Okay.
I think we've reached the point it doesn't pay off. I think going to a college at a low cost is great, but if you don't have money and trying to go to a major college where
getting yourself all in debt,
you're never going to get out of debt. So it doesn't pay to do that unless you can throw away that money. It doesn't pay to go to a so-called good college. Well, by that I mean one with a great reputation, very costly.
Well, I think it's all social meeting up with people. You want to be with the people who are going to be running the system, and that's where those people tend to go. And a lot of legacy things and everything like that.
I don't see that.
You've had experience.
I'm a legacy. I'm a legacy. My father went to Harvard Law School.
Is that how you got in?
The answer to that is complex. It's complex, and I don't know, but I did get a letter. I got into every college every law school that I applied to gave me a scholarship. So the answer is I got into Yale, I got into Columbia, I got it everywhere. But in Harvard, I used a letter from one of their top graduates who happened to be in charge of the largest collection of assets in the world.
Holy Toledo.
He was the one that was responsible for Stuyvesant Town and Peter Cooper Village, Metropolitan Life. He was the top lawyer for MetLife.
At MetLife.
So I had him write a letter.
That would carry a lot of weight.
Well, who knows? I mean, I don't know. I would hope that it did, and I didn't waste my time, but my father had gone to Harvard Law School.
You got such an interesting biography. We could talk for a minute. We could talk about the law and that kind of, why law, not medicine, all these kind of things.
Medicine, forget it. Anyone that wants to go into medicine today is crazy unless they really are dedicated and all they want to do is give up their lives for no money to help others. If they want to do that. Don't doctors
make a great deal of money?
They used to, but now we have given the system, starting with Hillary Clinton, we have started giving away the medical profits to the insurance carriers so that the profits from medicine are made by the pharmaceutical companies and the companies that own hospitals and the insurance carriers. They get the money. The doctors get very little, and it's a shame. We have lost the profession. We have created a series of I think, underpaid employees.
Really? That's really interesting.
I believe so,
Does the AMA and the medical profession recognize that and so forth?
I believe so.
Yeah, you think so, really? That's really an interesting thing.
And what we need now, clearly, and this is so crazy that you don't see the main media advocating this, but how in the world can we not get a single-payer system?
Well, that's what Mr. Moore has the sicko out now. Have you seen that? He's got the thing about
and
it's a broad-based attack upon the medical system itself. There's so many different kind of things. We're the only industrial country that doesn't have one.
We're 37th or something in terms of the health quality,
and the doctors
we pay the most.
And we're not in that kind of situation. The doctors are all flying around on their yachts and stuff because there's so much money going to them. It's going to the insurance.
The presidents of the insurance companies that take $100 million a year and deprive us of the coverage by hiring people that deny coverage.
Right, they want to deny coverage. They're going to save money by not giving the guy the pancreas. And I mean, he can do it, and we can do it capability. It's a metaphor for a situation where we have capabilities our system won't let us realize, and you've been filling the void in terms of trying to make corrections in that regard.
That brings us right into what I'm trying to do.
Right.
It comes right around full circle. This is very consistent now with what I've been trying to do. In America, it has been difficult for an individual to enforce his rights in court because the courts are getting more costly as we go along. It's so costly that even if you or I were charged with a crime, we don't have the funds to defend ourselves. So 97% of the people who are charged with a felony are forced to plead guilty whether they are guilty or not.
Plea bargain.
It's forced upon them, whether they're guilty or not. And if they don't express contrition to the judge, they get a longer sentence, even though they're innocent. In other words,
so like going to the principal's office.
We have a system in America that allows you to appeal. But
who the hell can afford it?
But it's worse than that. The appeal means that you maintain your innocence. But you get charged with a longer sentence if you don't confess at the end of the trial. If the jury is wrong and they convict you, you are then required to say, Your Honor, I'm so sorry that I did it. The guy is innocent, and he wants to appeal, but he will get a 5-year longer sentence unless he uses the words, Your Honor, I'm so sorry that I did it. He didn't even do it, but he's forced to say that he did it.
Now how has it come to be such a pretty passive? That is that's so.
Because the public has a main media that has an agenda, and the agenda is never really told up front to what the public can understand what's happening. So we talk about eliminating lawyers. How many people have complained about lawyers? And yet now that you don't have any lawyers defending you, you see that we have a much higher incidence of people going to jail. We have prosecutorial abuse.
Over 2 million in our prisons now, isn't it?
We have prosecutorial abuse, and the Attorney General of South Carolina had to step in and do something. One case out of 50 million prosecutions. One case. How about half of those where the Attorney General could have stepped in? Maybe we have half of the prosecutions really having illegal aspects to it, but no one does anything. So this concept that I have,
prosecutorial
abuse or misconduct.
widespread in the country and
it
systemic.
is because
The way things have evolved.
Let's say that prosecutorial abuse is like having a stoplight in the desert with no cops visible anywhere. A 5-minute stoplight that the traffic has to stop for that red light for 5 minutes. Who's going to stop?
Yeah.
There's no one watching the prosecutors.
Right.
So when I ran for Attorney General,
there's no one watching the prosecutors.
There's no mechanism.
Okay.
At
all levels of the law, federal, state, local.
Yes, because the top prosecutor has grand jury secrecy.
Okay.
And they have prosecutorial discretion, and they have prosecutorial immunity.
Oh, okay.
So when you have all of those three things, what can you do?
Is that like you can't sue City Hall?
You can't sue the prosecutor.
You cannot.
Well, only unless you catch him robbing a bank.
Oh, but nothing for the dereliction of duty.
Well, you know, they always argue.
It's systemic, and what's the trend in that direction?
The trend is that we have more and more people in jail. Just look at follow the money. If you see more and more people in jail, why? Why is the prosecutor more and more effective? Because of the abuse. Because people have to plead guilty. So now that the prosecutor doesn't work on a case, they can go out and get 40 people convicted, whereas it used to be they could only do one. If they had to try one case, they can only do one case.
The system's all skewed for the people to not be able to assert their rights. They have to be paying attention to their obligations to those who have power.
Streamlined. We've streamlined the justice system by eliminating it.
So it becomes, in a certain sense, if that's a trend, it becomes in a certain sense less just, in a certain sense, in terms of the interests of the people themselves, the masses.
Not only less just for the people that are falsely imprisoned, but how about the 5 or 10% loss to the Democratic Party of people who would normally vote Democratic? We have changed our government because of that. We wouldn't have had Florida if the people that were in jail, if half of them we wouldn't have had Florida.
Written off that was written off the book, off the voting rights.
Well, if they hadn't gone to jail, they would have voted Democratic, and we would have had another president. We wouldn't have had Bush. So what we've done is that by prosecutorial abuse, we have loaded the dice in favor of the wealthy and the party that represents them, and we've lost it for the others that are trying to get the government to help them. We've lost our government and the help that we need as people, as individuals.
Help me here, then. Hasn't it always been that the law, my dad was a lawyer, so we used to talk law around the table and all that sort of thing and everything, but the law has one component of the law, or the system, the rule of law. One of the things they have to be cognizant of is to protect the people who are powerful and wealthy against the unwashed masses. They don't say it that way.
It's very effective in doing that.
They do, and that's where. But there's supposed to be some aspect for equity and a growing common law, and more and more people being served with a just situation, more and more of the population. But the trends are moving away from that, in your estimation.
Yes.
From when was it in the best situation so far as historical development, let's say the American system?
I see, starting with President Nixon, a downhill slide. I see that globalization started with Nixon. And let me explain how that happened. I was there. Do you know that on the day that JFK was killed, I had a meeting scheduled with Richard M. Nixon in the office of Richard M. Nixon, where I was a lawyer.
63?
In the years, in November 22, 63.
Right.
I was working in the Mudge, Stern, Baldwin, and Todd, and Nixon was a lawyer there.
A law firm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Nixon's secretary had a meeting set up for me because Nixon, on the day of the killing, was in Dallas. He was meeting. Yes, he was. He was in Dallas. I knew where he was.
Yeah, because you had the meeting.
I had a meeting scheduled. So he came back, and he was at the airport, at the Idlewild Airport, JFK, and he was out of the airport before the reporters heard that Kennedy was shot. So Nixon wasn't there in Dallas at the moment of the shooting. He was there on the day of the shooting. And Lyndon Johnson was there. A whole bunch of people were there. A lot of people. But anyway, what I'm trying to do now...
You think it began with Nixon?
Well, thank you. Thank you. You're very sharp.
Well, I mean...
You're very good. I have to thank you for... Yes, it did. Here's what happened. Nixon, when he got into office, called up or wrote a letter or administrative directions saying that the Justice Department was no longer going to enforce the Robinson-Patman Act of the antitrust laws. and he delegated that
yeah.
to the FTC subtly with orders not to really enforce it. So that even though the Federal Trade Commission that had been vigorous and great in their enforcement of the Robinson-Patman Act that prohibits price discrimination.
Okay, I wasn't familiar with it. Okay,
the Robinson-Patman Act allows small people to engage in business because the manufacturers should sell to them at the same price that they sell to Walmart.
A move toward equity.
Yeah, so that the small people can engage in business. They're given due account to any savings that Walmart would allow for the manufacturer according to the volume that Walmart buys in.
Okay.
So, but that I can live with that. That's okay. The problem is that Walmart is buying goods below cost.
Oh, Walmart. Yeah, you've had some
right,
truck
and
with
I
them.
have a lawsuit against them. I've had them in the past.
You got
So the big guys buy below cost, and the small guys like you and me, if we wanted to engage in that, have to pay twice as much. So when we start selling goods like tires or batteries or spark plugs at twice the price or 4 times the price of Walmart, people don't come to our business and we go out of business. So our savings are eliminated and they really go to the benefit of the big company. So in New York City, we've been favoring the major retailers. We give them subsidies. We force the small retailer that's not making any money to pay taxes in order to hand that money over to their competitor.
Right. So
that's our policy.
The whole system is skewed to those who have.
Right. So what we need now,
we
Nixon,
got to get to the Attorney General role.
Nixon caused that, and the net result was that by not enforcing the nation's antitrust laws against big business was able to leave the country and go elsewhere where they move the jobs and they move their operations, they move their profits, because we haven't required them to obey the laws.
Was it only the law that did that? I mean, there must have been, in order for the globalization to work so effectively, there must have been a revolution in transportation or something, because those oceans and those distances and everything used to have a cost factor that wasn't so easily to be. Maybe containerization came in, or something made it possible for that pattern to come in that hadn't been effective. In terms, I mean, national economies had more autonomy or more autarky or something historically than is the case under globalization.
Well,
I mean, it wasn't just a series of laws, was it?
Well, I think you have an overall system that the big guys have created for themselves, one of which is to put in judges that will be sympathetic to them.
That's what I said. One of the roles of the courts and the law and the system of law, the rule of law, is to protect the interests of those who are rich and powerful. Right, and it has been since Roman times, I think.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But we did have
times do change, though.
Before Nixon, we had fairness to a great extent in among people competing. We had competitors that could go into court in the United States. In the United States, because our antitrust laws effectively are pretty much designed to regulate business in the United States. So we have allowed people to merge and merge and merge. Google has had 70 mergers in the past 3 years.
Yeah, right.
70. One of the largest companies ever has grown by merger and acquisition.
You got cases against them also.
Yes. So for monopolization.
Right.
I just argued the case on Friday. Just 2 or 3 days ago.
Good,
I was in California.
You get a good hearing?
I thought it was an excellent hearing.
Okay,
yes,
good.
As a matter of fact.
And you're okay.
So I'm fully expecting, but you never can tell.
We're talking. We could talk like this for 1,000 years and everything. It's really interesting things that are going on. But you've taken. We've got you down on the graph. We've got to talk about one thing. We got an initiative around the 9/11 because you're involved in a certain sense, in a advisory sense with the people who are on the 9/11 case, as it were, and they want to set up a commission. That's something you're in. And you're also interested in the idea that the role in terms of setting things right, that the Attorney General's offices that do exist within our system could serve the interests of the people is something you're very interested in. And you're attempting to become if I'm correct, the Attorney General for the city of New York.
Okay, here.
And that's a focus of your activity
right now. The focus of my activity is that.
Okay.
We have a petition that is being released today.
Today. This is the 21st.
The 21st.
The 21st of June. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, we have a petition.
Of the year 2007.
Yes.
We'll put the mark
on.
Okay, yeah.
So we have a petition that is there for people to sign.
Okay.
In New York City, registered voters only. And this petition does 2 things. It creates, we need 30,000 people to sign the petition, registered voters, and then it goes to City Council. If City Council likes it, they can adopt it as law, and that's it. Then it
now,
becomes a law.
Now, you're talking about the initiative of 9/11
Yes,
Commission.
it's
now,
both. They're all in the
let's
same...
say that they were going to do it through the Board of Elections in order for an it's an initiative to have it put on the ballot in September. Am I off base on that? But it would be passed the City Council.
The procedure is that it must go to City Council after we get 30,000 signatures, and they have the option to sign, as a governor, they have the option to sign it into law.
Sign it into law or make it an initiative in a plebiscite or something?
They can sign it into law.
They can sign it into law, City Council.
But if they don't, then we need 15,000 more and put it on the ballot.
Without their approval.
Correct.
And when they say they approve it, is that majority approval of City Council?
I believe so.
Okay.
I think so.
And that's what you're that's using the citizens' ability through the initiative.
Yes.
That is something that's used in other states more than it is here, perhaps. And so forth,
I haven't seen it used here, frankly. I think it's...
No, but it has been used elsewhere. California,
the referendum out there.
Oregon, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They use that a lot.
Yeah.
And you know who I knew from way back, what's his name, the guy, Mike Gravel.
Yes.
I know Senator Gravel from the 70s. And he had a thing before he ran for president. He's running for president on the Democratic side. And his whole thing was the use by the citizens of the initiative in order to get some citizens' participation in decision-making. And you were along those lines, right?
Absolutely.
You should get in touch with Mr. Gravel, I
We are.
Oh,
we
good.
are in touch with him.
Okay, good, yeah. Okay.
So here is the way it works. That our petition has two things. We are creating a 9/11 commission with a subpoena power to find out what happened on 9/11 and the circumstances before and after. So it's an investigation that will be an independent investigation with a subpoena power to tell the people what happened. We have a right to know what happened.
This is a citizens commission.
Well, it has 8 people that have been named to the commission who will be presented as part of the package. So and Lou Asner is there, for example.
Yeah.
So, and another the other aspect of this is that we decided that we wanted legal muscle, that we ought to build in the protection for this commission, because who is going to defend the commission and to ensure that it's created? So we wanted to be able to have some legal muscle to be able to go into court and enforce subpoenas when people are going to be saying they don't want to deliver this stuff. So by creating a New York City Attorney General that will represent the commission in court, we're giving the activities of the commission a much better chance of succeeding.
Help me out here. We had the Keene Commission, that kind of thing, that gave a report that said this explains it and so forth. A lot of people, and 60–70% of the people in New York City thinks there should be a reopening of that by Zogby poll.
That's correct.
That kind of thing. And you'd be creating a commission. It's not, is it who appointed the Keene Commission report? Who are the people within the system that put out that report or dealt with it? And what relationship is there between this that you're doing and the, let's say, unquote, official governmental system that operates this American system?
Well, our system is going to be a governmental commission. Because the people have the right to create a governmental agency, and that's what we're doing. We're creating a governmental agency by vote of the people. So it becomes a New York City governmental agency.
Has this happened in the history of New York before?
I don't believe
You're trying to plow neutral ground.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, right. A commission around the idea of the 9/11 system.
And to create an office of a New York City Attorney General. Now, there is never in the history of the country, and maybe the world, an Attorney General lower than the top of government. It's always at the top of the state or at the top of the federal government you have an Attorney General. I'm trying to bring that down. I'm trying to
the local level.
To the local level.
Good idea. I would think it would be good if we had an Attorney General who could represent the people
at the local,
against the vested interests at all levels.
If
we could have it as a that would be a good idea to assert some of the rights of the people rather than only drumming into them their responsibilities.
Exactly. We have enough prosecutors, we have enough policemen, motor vehicles, ticketing, TLC, licensing. All of that is to enforce the duties of people. But no one's out there enforcing our rights, and we're losing our rights. We're losing our rights because we're being over-regulated and too many duties, and no one is out there protecting our right to have a job, the right to have health care, the right to have a free ballot, a valid system, non-fraudulent ballot. We have to know what happened with 9/11. We have a lot of
who will speak for the people?
Who will speak for the people? Clean air quality, or to know how bad it is and what we can do about it. You need to have somebody that is going to look after the people, because the rich, wealthy, major corporations have looked out for themselves. They've taken over our government, and they're not leaving anything for us. They're taking what we have and misappropriating it to themselves.
And the trend is on that direction.
Exactly.
On a world scale, I think.
So we need a new sheriff in town, and that will be the New York City Attorney General. Somebody that will enforce the rights of the people for a change, because at government expense, because they're not getting their rights enforced.
I think it would be good if there's somebody, see, we have to have somebody with great capability and understanding and fortitude and so forth. I think a good guy for that would be this guy, Carl Pearson.
Well, that's
yeah, I think that would be a good idea, don't you? I presume you would say, and your wife will too.
I'm in that proposed statute as the temporary New York City Attorney General. Temporary. It'll be as long as
New York City.
New York City
all the
Attorney General.
All the boroughs?
Well, it's a 5-borough. It's an all-city office.
City
all
office that
city
would be created.
There's only 3 all-city offices, if I'm not mistaken.
What are the mayor?
The mayor.
Yeah.
The public advocate.
Oh, and public advocate.
Yeah.
Well, how about that? Isn't the public advocate supposed to be playing that role?
Here's what happens. Do you know?
Green?
Well, it's now Betsy Gottbaum.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, she's not a lawyer. She's not a lawyer.
Well, all right, but isn't that? Oh, they're not a lawyer.
No.
But they're supposed to be representing the people.
Here's
are they not?
what they're allowed to do.
Okay.
They're allowed to drop a dime in the phone and call up a government official and say, you know, we've got a complaint against you. So the government official on the other side is allowed to hang up and say, to hell with you. I don't care what you say. So what we are going to do, the public advocate can only make a phone call to a government agency. They don't have the right to go against General Motors or against Google or against somebody like that. They're an ombudsman designed to facilitate communications with government agencies.
Whereas you're thinking you want an attorney general with some teeth.
With teeth.
Subpoena power.
What I have just figured out today is that I want to be the enforcement arm for the public advocate.
I see.
That if they have problems that they can't address, I can make them stronger. When they make a call, I want the other side to know that if they don't get the relief they think they need, they can come to me and I can get it for them.
Okay.
That makes them stronger. I think the office of the New York City Attorney General can work with the public advocate and make them a much stronger office.
And could they be that financed in a way so that there could not be a great deal of pressure put upon citizen A who wants to bring some sort of a charge in their own name against the system? They would be able to do that. Legal aid doesn't work anymore.
Legal aid is only criminal.
Yeah, only criminal.
It never was civil.
But you understand what I'm saying, that it's impossible. You're saying the costs are so high and that kind of thing.
That's correct.
There would be an ability for there to be a financing system so there could be people who would exert the rights of the people against the vested interest power.
Right. Now,
we really need that in this society.
Here is the difference
this
now.
This commission is a way to begin to introduce that to the citizens of New York City as a thing to think about.
If one person has a problem, I don't consider that something where they should come to the Attorney General, the New York City Attorney General. But if there's a group of 100 people or 1,000 that have that problem, then the New York City Attorney General should be looking at it.
Is that like class action?
Well, the New York City Attorney General doesn't have to bring a class action. That's the beauty of that official. He himself, he or she, can bring the action by reason of the office, that they represent the people without naming it as a class action.
Because they're targeting Melvin Weiss now. I don't know if Melvin Weiss is the largest class action thing, and they were targeting him, and they were really targeting his program.
I saw the allegations there. The allegations.
Yeah, what do you think? I mean, do you want to comment? Maybe
well,
you don't
yes,
want to.
I do. I've always been against class actions. I don't like them.
They haven't been there since about 65
well,
or so.
Class actions have generally been for the lawyer. The lawyer makes all the money, and the people that are represented make very little. And the reason for that, in part, is that the statute requires that the people in a class have very little at stake, not enough to bring suit themselves. So part of the definition of a class.
You were talking about you wouldn't want an individual, you'd want a thing where there's a group of people, so that seems to be suited to the notion of class action. Class action was only allowed.
Yes.
And I think they've targeted the idea of even that, ability for the people to come together to answer
Okay.
to the big powers
The-
or to challenge
the
the
big
big powers.
powers
Maybe I
have
got
a-
a wrong view. Or
No,
reading.
the big powers have eliminated the effectiveness of class actions by requiring too much paperwork and too much cost and paperwork and delay and huge litigation efforts in order, and a few people
To
have
protect the
prevailed
rich and
to
powerful.
protect. Yeah, that stops it. But with a New York City Attorney General, you
Yeah.
don't go through the class action phase. You just have a direct lawsuit, no class action.
Well, okay, you're representing a group of people.
Well,
if you got 1,000
the
people,
New
who
York
are-
City
yeah.
Attorney
How
General
would it work?
would automatically be representing the people. If New
Now,
York, if New York City sued someone,
Uh-huh.
they don't have to allege that New York City represents the people. You understand that?
I'm
If
not, yeah, okay.
If New York City sues, they are the people.
Well, who is the closest that performs that function now? We have prosecutors and so forth. They're supposed to stand up for
They're
the
criminal.
citizens against the individual lawbreaker. or
Those are
something.
criminal.
Oh,
Those
that's
are
all
criminal.
criminal. Okay, yeah,
The
yeah.
New York State Attorney
Yeah.
General is the one who does that, and
Now, that was Mr. Spitzer until
yes, and now
recently.
Cuomo.
Or now Cuomo,
Yeah,
right.
and Cuomo already, since the beginning of the year, has raised $100 million bringing suit against loan companies, student loan companies, and colleges.
Raised $100 million for
settlements.
whom? Oh,
Well,
in settlements.
Yeah, in settlements.
Okay.
So half of that money really belongs to New York City, but we're never going to see it.
Okay.
So if
because
the-
he was doing it in the name of the state.
Yeah, right. So if New York City now, with a New York City Attorney General, starts bringing these actions,
Yeah.
we can raise billions of dollars for the council.
And we're raising those billions of dollars from where? From the coffers of the
wrongdoers,
corporations.
from wrongdoers.
From the corporations and from the vested
Essentially.
interests now.
Yes,
So
correct.
that would be
Correct.
there. And the idea of the Attorney General doesn't have to be at the federal or state level. It could be at we could have an Attorney General in every little township or something.
We should have.
Somebody representing the people.
We should have. We need
Yeah.
a new sheriff in every town and village, if nothing else, to oppose the Nifons.
The Nifons?
Yeah, he's that prosecutor of the lacrosse rape.
Oh, right, yeah.
You need somebody
he just got
to oppose
debarred,
him,
disbarred, right.
Well,
yeah.
the South Carolina.
What's the tune? What's the tune?
I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
but the South Carolina people came in. The South Carolina Attorney General came in and did something, and that's what stopped the abusive prosecutorial activities.
Yeah.
But we could have that in every town and village. We could have someone watching out for that who would have the money and the authority to stop it.
Is that where the idea of the Attorney General came into our system at all from the beginning of the Republic, or where did that come from? Or what is it? Was like CPA?
I'm sorry.
Like a CPA?
I'm
or
sorry.
something,
I'm
somebody
sorry.
started- maybe the president.
I'm going to turn this
Maybe-
thing off.
Oh,
right?
can you turn it off?
Yeah,
You know
I'm going
how?
to turn it off.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Good. No, but it came in. Where did it come? What is the philosophy of the Attorney General as a part of our system at all?
We're putting it on
and
the
why
website.
is it some people have it and some people don't? Some states do, some don't.
We're putting it on the website. It derives from the common law in England, and they had an attorney general there who had the powers of both prosecution and civil prosecution, criminal and civil.
Right.
And in America, the criminal it went downstream to go to the county level, where we then had the power of the Attorney General from a criminal standpoint
Yeah.
being exercised at the county level.
Okay.
But the civil never got there. It never descended along the way the criminal did. It stayed at the top. We need a decentralization of the civil aspect,
right.
because in the criminal it's overbearing. It's a necessary thing to bring the civil component of the Attorney General down to the lowest level, or at least the county level, so you can deal effectively with the excesses of the criminal prosecution. But that's just one
Now, how
small
are these
phase.
people going to be? You're seeking to become this
Yes.
for New York City now.
I want to show
in
that
this current phase. I mean, in this season.
Yeah, I want to show that it can happen. I want to show what that
would be the
office can
procedure by
do.
which you would be assuming this position? What would be
by-
required in order for you to assume this position? Or let's say we tie it in to the commission. The 9/11 thing was being done by less than other people. and so
That's the
forth.
same thing.
Yeah.
It's in that same petition.
Right. It's in the same
If
petition.
the city council approves it, then they're going to get a machine that will turn billions of dollars a year over to the city council.
I see.
See?
Oh, so that might be in their interest
That's right.
in order to do it. And
Would they
they're
like to have-
supposed to represent the people.
Would they like to get an extra several $billion a year?
How would that happen? Because
Because
of fees or
well,
through the courts?
Cuomo already raised $100 million
Okay, for
in 3 months.
Yeah, in 3 months
Yeah.
against the credit cards. Or is it student debt?
Student loan.
Oh, really? Good. Okay.
$100 million. Spitzer,
and there's political support for that.
Spitzer raised $2.3 billion in the year 2003.
A lot of that was against Wall Street and
well,
so
it's
forth,
a few people. It's only he raised it against a few people.
Right,
Imagine if he actually went against all the wrongdoers.
And he got elected as governor, so
he
there's
got
some
he
support.
got out. He was in the most effective job. The office of the New York State Attorney General is the second most powerful office in the country.
In the country?
In the country,
second
because
only to the
he
president.
raises big money. He doesn't have to pass a statute. He doesn't need anyone's approval. He doesn't need the governor's okay. He doesn't want any new statutes. He doesn't need any legal opinions. He has the money and the authority to do anything he wants. And what he did, he catapulted into a less effective job, but one that's more visible.
Yeah, as governor.
Yeah.
Into less.
They got him out of that job.
Yeah, but do you think that's a stepping stone to national office or something?
I don't know.
Or is this in the wind in terms of national? Is it something that could be happening around the country? The people are getting their back up. People are getting their back up against the injustice of the system that is inherently part of the system as it sits now.
How many people from New York State can we have running for president?
See
what I mean?
How many can we have? Right. Well, it's all there. Mr. Bloomberg has thrown his hat in the ring now. We got Miss Clinton and Giuliani. I don't know, Mr. Schumer. I don't know who.
So I
well,
never before has New York
State
had so many entrants.
Yes, never before have so many done so much for so few.
But this petition now to create a 9/11 commission with the Attorney General, the New York City Attorney General, to enforce the subpoenas. The New York City Attorney General will also have the power to raise money to finance the commission and the added money will be turned over for unrestricted purposes to the New York City Council.
Now, if you're speaking about the people, a lot of people speak, I speak for the people, Mr. Tweed said, and so forth. The people would say that all the way. They would say they got a lot of people who want to speak for the people. How are the people selected? How is it done? Is there a roster of people who make up this commission with prominent names? How wide can the the net be cast in order to get people? Is it possible for 9/11? Let's say, is this the idea of a commission to investigate 9/11 and so forth? Suppose, like I brought this up with lessons, is that something that could be a lot of people? Zogby poll says 70% of the people in New York City think there should be an investigation, or they should be reopening, or it should be coming out more and more. So how far could it go up to where there would be somebody of a presidential ambition that would say, I think it would be good for us to investigate it and get ahead of the parade?
Well,
but you've got these people that have an indictment.
I can't believe it. I turned it off. Does this thing go back on automatically?
Don't ask me.
Do
ask
I have
a
to take the? Do I have to take the battery out of this thing?
You have to get a 10-year-old. Hit it with a stick. Have you got it now? It's a rather nice tune. It's not so bad, really.
I can't believe it. I'm trying to turn this thing off.
Well, you see, we need a 10-year-old to program. We never used to have to program anything,
Does it
Carl.
turn back on
I can remember we didn't have to
automatically?
program anything. Remember until the VCR? And then we couldn't figure that damn thing out. Now, every day, I'm trying to figure out some new digital. But how far out could there be people who say 9/11? A lot of people 9/11 think that's a focusing event in terms of the system and systemic look at it and so forth. How far could we get to be where somebody of a presidential in the current election season coming up would say, I think it's a good idea for us to reinvestigate the 9/11 thing and so forth? How far out could you include the general citizenry, or do you just have a group of people who jump up and say, we represent the people, but they don't. They represent a small group, really. Of the, you understand what I'm saying?
What happens is that by putting something on a ballot for the voters to say whether they want it or not, you then have direct democracy where the voters can say whether they really want it or not.
Yeah.
Other than that, if we have numerous presidential candidates, none of whom want it. None of them have said they want a new investigation.
No, they wouldn't. And, but could they?
Well, they could if they wanted to.
If you get Zogby polls saying 70% of the people think that, if that's true, accurate perception, then they would get ahead of the parade.
We have that, but they don't go by those polls. They go by the main media. The main media is not pushing 9/11. They pushed it off the front pages. They don't have anything about investigations and the like, so that the people running for office need to make sure that the main media supports them. If they start coming out for 9/11, reopening 9/11,
even if it's at the level, not because a lot of the people who do the 9/11 thing are, in a certain sense, there's a whole thing. It's like they're called conspiracy people. A lot of people think that, but you got a lot of people who think that General Zogby poll. A lot of people who think, well, all right, they did a job, but they didn't get all the I would like to know more about it without any presupposition of anybody being guilty or anybody within the administration or any of those kind of suppositions that a lot of people have.
What
You
you're
see?
saying is reasonable, but for politicians running for national office today, it's not in the cards. They
Even
will
when you,
lose vote because
e-
the media will dump on them for
even when you've got Mr. Bush is down to what, 28% approval now, and it's all-time low and everything like
the
that.
proof is right here. With all the different candidates that are running, none of them are asking for a new investigation.
You don't
so
think
why?
you don't think people who could? We were sitting and talking. It seemed to me to make a lot of sense that there be an attorney general that represents the people against the special interests. You don't think there's a tide of against special interests where all of the assets and all of the benefits are going to a few people and so forth, and there's stirrings among the people that could be politically viable on a larger tablet than 9/11.
The
That's what I'm
media,
saying.
the main media doesn't focus every day on the injustices. They focus on football, sports, and other things of a diversionary nature so that the people themselves believe that everything is okay. They would like to believe. They don't have enough reinforcement that things are wrong and that something can be done about it. So they're not, the whole world isn't listening to us. A few people listen to us and they learn something, but in the main media, they're not taking this story and pushing it so that the politicians aren't going to run with it.
You don't think there's a reform or revolution is not in the air?
There is.
On the planet, I think it might be.
If you have a ballot initiative, that is where the public can do something that the politicians don't want. That's where the action is. In a ballot initiative where the public can say, we want this, and they can vote it in even though the politicians don't like it.
Now, if you get this thing through, as I understand it, you got to get 30,000 signatures, and we got the thing, and what is it? It's 9/11 New York?
It's at nyc911initiative.org.
Okay, that's it. You can go, you get a petition. The petition's been drawn up, that kind of thing. You sign it. You can sign it. You want to read it carefully and everything.
You
get
read it, you sign it, and you have to get another voter.
Have to get another to notarize, or just
another voter to sign.
Witness.
Another voter to sign. But they both must be New York City voters, registered New York City voters.
Right, because it's New York City.
And then they mail it to the...
And they go to the Election Commission?
No, ultimately we collect them and present them to the Election Commission.
Election Commission.
But they don't send it to them now. They send it to us.
Yeah, they send it to you, and then you present it to them. And then the Election Commission would then decide. Then they would put it in front of the City Council.
They count them, and they present it to the City Council.
They present them, and if there's enough support, witness 30,000, then that will become an initiative on a ballot upon an initiative in September or something like that?
What happens, the City Council then decides whether they want to adopt it as their own or reject it. If they reject it, we have to go back and get 15,000 more signatures, and then it goes on the ballot.
Within what time period?
The time period for the council is 60 days to accept or reject, and then there's no...
After it's presented. And is there a timetable to submit it to the Board of Elections? That's the first submission?
The first submission...
Is there a date for that? And what sets the date?
Well, whenever you get the petition, then the dates start rolling. We're under very short time pressure if we're going to meet the November 6th
Well, for
deadline.
citizens who might be interested in doing this thing, it seems to make some sense, something worth investigating or something, they want to get in touch with your website and that sort of thing, they'd have to have some sort of a sense of what is the time frame that we're dealing with in terms of when this would be a viable thing for us to think about.
It's viable to do it right now.
Because,
and then...
And it will be viable until when? And
well,
when
it's
would
viable
it pass?
forever.
Okay.
Because if we get the 30,000 at some date...
You don't have to get that within a certain time period. You haven't got a deadline that you have to get it in term of.
The answer is we would have a deadline if the only option were to be for November 6th.
Right.
But another option is that the New York City Council at any time, whether it's November 6th or not, can approve it. So there's no deadline to present it to the council that can say, gee, we get another $5 billion a year of income, let's sign it. So you have an independent way that the council can just agree that it's a great idea and make it a law without going to the
So this initiative is a way to get the ball rolling.
Yes.
Okay, and also that could be a thing, and not a small matter, is that we'd be having Carl Pearson perhaps becoming the Attorney General for the city of New York.
I'm built into the petition.
You're built into it.
I'm going to try to prove that the concept of a city attorney general or a town or village attorney general is what we need.
Wait a minute, you just want a borough general, a borough
Well, I think
attorney
any
general?
political.
How
I
are
think,
you're thinking it through at a level, because you've thought of this before, you're thinking through at another level. There could be an attorney general in every town.
For a county.
And that would be a person that would be representing the interests of the
that town.
people.
Yeah, of that town.
Of that town.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
We need
or
that.
the city.
We need
or
that.
the state.
They have a sheriff.
Yeah, that's right.
Why don't we have somebody that can look after the
people? Well,
people?
the sheriff very often takes care of the interests of those who order the factory down the street and make sure that, you know, they usually take in Nottingham, the sheriff of Nottingham was taking Robin Hood under arrest.
The sheriff
you know,
enforces law against people.
And the law generally serves the rich and powerful in each community.
We need someone enforcing the law for people.
For people. Yeah. There's some parts of the law, those few parts of the law that have something to do with helping the people or enforcing the rights of the law.
The civil rights of people need to be enforced.
All right.
The rights to a job, the rights to health care, the rights that we as citizens and residents think that we have, but we can't get because we don't have the ability to go into court.
And those that we may have won over the long trail of winding up Mount Sisyphus are being eroded.
Right.
As we look at
So we need to stop the erosion. We need somebody to go into court to stop that. And we have too much.
And there are instruments built into the system that would allow that to happen if we but take the initiative to try and think about putting this in the interest of the people.
We have a lawyer that will be using public money to enforce the rights of the public. Instead of asking individuals to mortgage their house and hire a lawyer to get justice,
so they can end up in debtor's prison. If we don't watch out, we're going to have Star Chamber and debtor's prison before long. You know, I mean, that kind of trend is on, and people a lot see that. And a lot of people see that internationally, too. The concept is one that might have legs, as they say, in terms of the world situation as well. I think there are a lot of people that think that this system that's in place that we've inherited and they assume is legitimate in a historical sense has fundamental structural flaws. That it does not work in terms of what the future requires. There are a lot of people, that's called like revolution or something, like what happened in 1789 France, you know.
What's happening is that the structure of government has been acquired by the people that have money. And the people themselves...
But hasn't it always been, Carl?
Well, we have mechanisms. It's getting worse now because with globalization and the inability to stop people in a corporation from taking $300 million a year as a salary. So we have just a looting of America. And the public, it comes out of the public's pocket. I mean, all of this is looting. They're transferring the wealth of America to international companies. You think of them as American companies, but they're not. They have most of their business elsewhere. They're not American, but they control our government.
And they got a lot of that hidden in the Cayman Islands and Isle of Man and that kind of stuff, and you can't get at them. And it's just it's like a fool's paradise. Because they can hide things and they can't do things. The Swiss banks won't give their numbered accounts and all that kind of stuff.
So we need to
and there's no jurisdiction in international law to match the capital expand.
A lot of it is legal, and we need to have a law enforcement official for the people instead of just against them. We need to have someone working for them.
Why wouldn't that law enforcement or that system? Why wouldn't that be something like a political party? Or a presidential candidate who would stand with the people instead of all the candidates being for the rich and powerful, which seems to be the case now, unless you think
because no candidate is going to get the money to do that because the people themselves can't contribute as much money as the super wealthy. The super wealthy buy the election. Somebody with $1 billion or $2
democracy money can
buys it. You can only raise a couple of $1,000s, so you don't have a shot here. But if we have an individual, a law enforcement official with government money or can raise money by suing, then suddenly we have the ability to enforce the rights of people.
And using the law. And you said in there, in terms of the 50 members of the City Council of the City of New York, you said that they could be a source of revenue for them that would be coming through the operation of the law of the Attorney General. And that might be something that they would prick up their ears and say it would be nice to have some money to get some education, some health for the people and that kind of stuff. And how would that work then? There would be cases brought against the vested rich people in order to get redressers in the court system.
If somebody's moving jobs out of New York and there's a legal basis for stopping that, or suing wrongdoers who move the jobs out, they might have taken money from New York City to create jobs here, then they found a better opportunity and they moved the jobs elsewhere. There's different reasons that you can sue people for that. There should be some kind of a right that a company just can't take an entire plant and move it somewhere
But
else.
they're doing
I know
exactly
they're doing that,
They're
but
doing
we
that
have
right
to
now.
we have to try to stop that.
Yeah.
There's legal doctrines that could be applied. Important cases, but no one is trying to do it because the prevailing sentiment of the controlling government is to allow the rich to get richer, the big to get bigger, and they merge and they acquire, get huge monopolies, and no one's doing anything to stop it. So we need someone at the local level to try to do that.
Paul Krugman had an article a couple of years ago, or a few months ago, and he said that in the growth from the 1980, 50, 93 to 95, the growth that occurred in the economy then, in the United States economy, don't even talk about it only going to the upper 5%. It didn't even go beyond inflation to the upper 1%. It didn't even hardly, a little bit gain to the upper 1/10 of 1%. But the real growth and the real expansion in the capital assets went to the upper 100th of 1% of the population. It's like feudal.
Yeah.
You know, it's becoming absurd. And don't you think that that creates a situation? And then we got this crazy thing in Iraq, and we got this thing. Never have we been in such low esteem. We walk across the world thinking we have a system that's legitimate for the ages and so forth, and we're like a modern-day Ancient regime. Revolutions in the air.
But you know,
revolutions in the air.
You know, if people weren't railroaded into jail and if they hadn't lost their right to vote, we wouldn't have had that. So see what I mean? So it's all interrelated. We have to deal with a variety of issues.
Right.
And some of the other major ones may become resolved that way.
Yeah.
But
and the trends are such that there's going to be more and more alienation, if that's the right term, at all levels. At the local, and the injustices are going to become more obvious and everything. And it's beginning to happen. You got things happening in Latin America now and so forth. And the assumed legitimacy of those people who represent that leading edge, you know, the thing. That's the thing that, in a certain sense, it should not be called legitimate that these things take place, because the future requires something other than what's in place, and that which is in place is outdated by the evolution of events, and we need a qualitative change in order to get what the future either allows or requires, if we're not going to blow the whole damn thing up.
All we really need, as I see it, is to go into a court and enforce our rights at government expense.
Under the system.
Yeah, under this new system.
Well, that certainly is a good thing to think about. And
let's try it.
Okay, I think it's good, and people are encouraged, one and all, to get in touch with this initiative thing. They're going to. This is too late for the program. Ralph Shulman's going to be talking to us. He's one in the people thing, and they're going to be putting this thing forward. And that's an issue that could get a lot of action going. And then you could be there in order to help in terms of the legal aspect of it. And the writing, the wording of the petition and everything is something you help put together.
Oh, absolutely.
It's legally good and this sort of thing. Okay, well, I wish you all the best in terms of that, because I think it'd be good to have you on the case, as it were, and so forth, and this thing. And it's a big subject, but I thanks a lot, and to all the people of 9/11, I want to follow this. We want to do more and everything, and we want to get you on the air here. We're having trouble getting you on the air. You should be on the air to carry these kind of ideas, and we really
I've been trying for a year now.
I know. We got to look into that. So you should have your program and everything like that. Carl, so good talking to you. Always good talking to you. Your pleasure. Let me just see how we're doing. Yeah, your pleasure. The perception. Carl Pearson, then. Attempting to become the Attorney General for the City of New York is an experiment that would be very interesting, worth encouraging, and along the lines of this 9/11 Truth, 9/11 initiative that's being advanced and so forth in these very days that we talk now. So everybody ought to get involved in that, and all the best to you and all the gang, and say hello to Les and to Frank and everybody else on that side of things. Thanks for viewing. We'll be coming back again tomorrow. That's it for now. Counselor, once again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.